cried the sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome back. I am alive still. Just barely. No, it's been full throttle, but yes, the podcast does continue. I'm over here right now where I've been working for the last couple of weeks, trying to get a plethora of vessels all together, sorted out, painted, fixed, you name it. We have been doing it, and moreover, we've also been topping up the level of spending quality time with good friends. My goodness. That is something that I did not realize was becoming a bit depleted for me as of late. Bit of a loneliness factor, I think, going on there. But irregardless, I took advantage of this situation. Big shout out to Katie, Steve, and Dan, who all we bunked up together and essentially we're working together and hanging out each night, sailing, doing all sorts of fun stuff, and it was just an absolute blast. But it was also a necessity, I think, because I feel topped up, if that makes any sense. You know, as a solo sailor, it's I don't know. It made me kind of think of the Appalachian Trail when, you know, you get about halfway on that thing. You know, you make it up to Virginia and West Virginia and Maryland and all that. And the numbers of fellow hikers start to deplete a little bit. Things start to get a little more lonely. That coffee is good. Woo! And you find yourself camping alone on a mountaintop night after night after night after night. And I think there's some value in that. Or no, I absolutely believe there's value in that. Spending that little bit of alone time to think and process and, you know, not only look internally, but also be present in the environment that you're in, you know, really there, where you're just taking those moments. It's like a forced boredom sometimes makes it so that when you're looking around, you're a little more involved in, you know, the color of the bark on that tree over there, or the way that squirrel keeps romping around from there to there, and watching him being like, oh my gosh, he's actually hiding acorns. Huh, I didn't know they did that. You know, those sort of things. And being alone in that solitude sometimes is necessary to make the leap, you know, from the world of the information overload, screens everywhere kind of thing, to, I don't know, a slower pace, a more thoughtful, more present pace. But that has its limits as well. And, you know, by the time I got to Maine on that trip, I mean, geez, I had been alone camping on my onesie, I don't know, close to like 70 days or something like that. And an interesting thing happened when I pulled into Monson, Maine. I believe it was Monson. And it's one of the last, you know, kind of regular little towns. And it's tiny. There's two little hostels, one that's like above a bar. And I bumped into a whole gaggle of old AT buddies from back in the Carolina days. I mean, we're talking 110 days prior to this. And these were all just people that I hadn't, you know, we separated and we just didn't overlap anymore after that. And I ended up hooking into a group of about 6 other hikers, maybe 6 or 7. And oh, geez. Let's see. There was Patches. She was hilarious. There was Sasquatch. He was classic. And I actually have seen him since. Gosh, who else was there? The Dark Knight. Oh, God. We had such great names back then. And then yours truly, Geronimo. But it was really interesting because, it's one of those things where normally on the AT, maybe hooking up and camping or hiking with one other person. But this was going to be a complete reversal. And at first I was like, yeah, sure. Let's all, I'll mind if I kind of link on with you guys. Cause these people had been hiking together for quite some time. And, very graciously, they were like, yeah, sure thing. And we ended up spending the 100-mile wilderness and climbing that final peak, Mount Katahdin, together. Not always, glued together, but end of the day, we all met up and we had some great conversations and shared a lot of wonderful moments. And, I think about that time as one of the more enjoyable chunks of time on the Appalachian Trail. It also was good as far as a valuable time to share that sort of experience after, being alone. And therein lies sort of the rub is that, would that experience with all those people, would that have been as great? Would I have cherished it as much if I was always with people, the 75 days or so before that? Probably not. So I think there's an argument to be made for the times of solitude, the times of loneliness, and then jumping into more of a social and sharing sort of experience. And that's essentially what we've been doing here. And that, I'm not trying to make excuses for why the whole podcast has been quite late. Like we're, I don't know, 2 weeks or something it's been. I don't know how long. But it was one of those situations where I kept mentioning and saying, hey, guys, we should do a podcast. But at the same time, we were just having so much fun doing so many things that the idea of slicing that and just being like, no, let's go and shut the world out and go and have one of these convos. As delightful as it is, as much as I love doing it, it just didn't feel like the right moment. So sometimes you have to just go with your gut. But I do formally apologize for the delay in the podcast and breaking my lovely streak that was going so well for so long. But that's okay. Moving on, gut feeling. The other day, we had done, oh my gosh, we did a breakfast run at 6 a.m., we just peeled through stepping all these Pearson ensign masts, did a paint job on another ensign, and at the end of the day, there was one more boat that's very classic. It looks like a miniaturized J boat. So it's a 17 meter, and it's teeny weeny, 24, 25 feet long, skinny as a broomstick, but has those classic, beautiful lines, really tall mast and all that sort of stuff. And it's a delicate boat. It's probably 60 years old or something like that. And we restored it last year. I probably talked a bit about it on the podcast. And it was a little bit windy, a little bit bouncy. We pulled it up to the dock because it was going to be the end of the day, like last boat we did. And all of a sudden, I got the tingle. I got the spidey sense. Now, there have been dozens of examples over the years where I am in my element. I'm in a water sports center or I'm on a boat, and all of a sudden it's like the hairs stand up on the back of my neck and I'm kind of like, something's not right. Wait a minute. And I start kind of looking around and I'm looking at situations, and I'm also looking at what I am about to do or what I am doing. And there have been a handful of times where I have not followed along with that thinking and I just dust it off. And then something bad does happen where you're like, something breaks, or whatever your game plan is really turns out to be just a terrible idea. It causes a bit of the snowball effect, if you will. And but the other times, though, I mean, I still remember walking into one of the premier sailing schools on the East Coast just to get a tour of the place. real quiet day, and I kind of was like, hey, I kind of feel like something's wrong. And we walked out of the office that we were doing the tour in, and ironically, they were showing me kind of how their observation deck works, how they can keep an eye on all these boats and stuff. And lo and behold, there was a Hobie Getaway, the one that was out with an instructor that was capsized way upwind, and had to send a rescue boat after him. And I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't know what it is and where that comes from. Maybe it's just years of doing it, but sometimes it's just a weird feeling. And we're sitting there, we load the mast on, and I'm like, I got a tingle here. I got something's going on. This situation doesn't add up, and I feel like something's going to go wrong if we do this. And so I went to the boss, the person who's in charge this year, and I said, hey, listen, I got like kind of a bad feeling. What do you say we just do this one tomorrow? And she graciously was just like, yeah, no problem. You got a bad feeling? Go for it. No big deal at all. Because we had already punched out a ton of work. But, I think we all have sort of this intuition, if you will. And sometimes, even though it may not be productive, it may not be the thing that we need to be doing, I think it's very valuable and worth it to trust your gut sometimes when it's telling you, when you just get that feeling, you're like, something just isn't right. And yeah, I had that the other day, and it's been a long time since I've had that. So it was kind of one of those, it was like almost nostalgic, like, hold on, something bad's going to happen. I get these weird feelings, guys. You know what I mean? And I don't know. And the downside to that whole thing, trusting your gut and like changing a plan for anything, is that if somehow you could then watch a video of what would have happened if you had done it somehow in some magical universe, and you see that like the mast, something snaps on it and it falls or whatever, then you're like, yeah, see, I knew it. But you can never do that, not in our reality, at least. And so you eventually, you're never going to know what you might have just avoided, but you just got to trust that you avoided something. And I think there's some credence in that. Call me crazy, but I think trusting the old gut is a pretty good thing. So this summer is now almost in full swing. I always contend that June 1st, boom, I don't care what you say, the summer has begun. We are in the final days of the pre-summer, aka the spring. It's still brutally cold at the night up here in Michigan, but today's absolutely stunning, 70-something degrees, sunny. It's still there. There's a little bit of wind picking up. But essentially, I got to go true one more mast, get that rig all tuned up. We ran out of cotter pins. Yesterday, so we couldn't finish that one up, but going to go tag that one, and then I'm up to do a little sanding and one final coat of paint on this other ensign, and then I'm going to go help the old man plant the rose bed at the homestead. I'm moving and shaking, everybody. There is a lot of, just lots and lots of things. I'm actually will have launched, stepped, and tuned, I think, like 12 ensigns and a few other, medium-sized keel boats this beginning to this summer. And it's been fun. It's really, I like mixing it up on these tiny boats. It always amazes me at how small the wire rigging is. You get off Sparrow, and you kind of hop on some 25-foot day sailor, and you're like, dude, what are these hair string piano wire? How is that going to hold the mast? And then when you're tensioning it, you're like, I don't want to tension this anymore. It doesn't, it's pretty crazy. It's a funny juxtaposition, if you will. But we're moving back into Jeromestown tonight. Hopefully we'll have some more. I kind of am in the. I'm feeling that the next few podcasts, unless we do get, well, hopefully we're going to get Colin on board because he just pulled into Hawaii. Colin Denker, Congratulations to him. Obviously, Oliver, he had landed in Hawaii a few days ago. We've only texted back and forth, congratulations, all that sort of stuff. But hopefully both those newly passage-making skippers, sailors, captains will join us on the old podcast to relive some of the experiences. Boy, it's astounding to see how viral, how many people really took note of Oliver's trip over there and stuck with it. It's amazing. I mean, I really do think that a rising tide floats all boats, or lifts all ships. God, I got to get that right. Because it's great. It's great for the sport. More eyes on sailing, more eyes on ocean sailing, ocean passage, man. It's great. I mean, it's such a neat thing. And now the fact that we can share it, throughout the passage, I think is really incredible. And though I still have not made the leap to doing so aboard Mighty Sparrow, but the next passage on Sparrow is coming up at the end of July. We're going to be sailing from North Carolina up to Cape Cod and the Vineyard and all those fancy places to do some talks and stuff. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's like a little carrot dangling away, just saying, "Hey, you want to take one of these Starlinks on board? You want to post? You want to post a little? Want to post a little reel? Huh? Do you? You want to upload a podcast while you're out at sea?" So I don't know. We'll have to see. Again, it almost goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning, where you gotta have this balance. I haven't been posting anything on social media or YouTube. It's been weeks now, and I'm not gonna lie, it feels kind of good. It feels I barely even pick up my phone unless I'm just trying to change the music that I'm listening to. And, you put a lot of effort into these things. And I always went into a lot of these platforms with the same idea that once I produced enough content on there, it was going to be basically like a catalog for people who were interested in the subject to be able to peel through. And I would get to a point where the idea of I have to constantly upload is no longer, that's not something that I want to or have to continue to do. And essentially, I think we reached that probably a while ago, but it's kind of hard to get out of the habit. You think like, oh man, I haven't done a video in a while. I got to do another video. And in reality, you don't have to do any of that stuff. The channels, they all still grow. It just slows down a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, it's not a necessity. And now it's more of, instead of me sitting there and being like, ooh, I got to think about what would be an interesting, upload, an interesting this, an interesting that. Now it's more, I've transitioned, I think, into, if something comes up that I'm like, oh, this would be great, and I stumble into it, then yeah, I'll try and produce something, some sort of form of content around it, and then put that up there. Now, this is definitely not talking about the podcast. The podcast we just had to have that little foray there because we were just too darn busy, full throttle. You know what I mean? And podcast is a completely different form of, I think, content when it comes to just like the idea of producing it, because again, vast majority of the time, or at least 50% of the time, it's me just rambling into this microphone for almost like a self-introspective, and the other 50% of the time, it's a fantastic way for me to sit down and have a great conversation with another human being, uninterrupted and just honest and authentic. Like, what else could you ask for? So, and I always get to learn stuff. They learn stuff. And we usually have quite a few laughs and maybe a crispy BL. But yeah, it's shaping up. We're about a week week and a half from heading up to the great state of the Upper Peninsula to Lake Superior for a first ever in my life sailing on Lake Superior. Shout out to Shell, Passages from the Heart. It's going to be a lot of fun going up there, tearing through the Compact 25, figuring out all the systems and getting out there on the water. Hopefully, I'll get up there and it'll be a bit of a warm spell. Now, I know that's probably not going to happen, but that's okay. I brought all my foul weather gear. I got loads of puff jackets, foulies, and fleeces, and lots of long underwear. So it should be okay for that. And then we're shooting on down back home for a little bit, but then we're going Indianapolis. We'll be there for a little, and then boom, over to Chicago for some sailing. And a preliminary Chicago to Michigan City and back race, which will be pretty cool. We're going to test out the asymmetrical on the Catalina 30.9. Captain Joseph and I are going to rip through that. I'm hoping Todd will be there as well. Half the crew or 2/3 of the crew for the Chicago to Mackinac race later on in July. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And then maybe in between that, a rip down to Sparrow to go sand and varnish the cap rail. Yes, I have decided. I saw an old picture, Sparrow, an old video from Buford. I'm looking at, and just backstory for anybody that hasn't heard, I've been going back and forth. I'm like, what do I want to do with this cap rail? It's beautiful. It's mahogany. It's still in great shape. But the varnish is super patchy and it's peeled off in places and it looks absolutely awful right now. But I had toyed with the idea of going gray, just like I am. You just sort of let it go and you stop making it look all fancy and protect it. You protect it with by letting it go gray a little bit. But I saw this picture of Sparrow, and I suppose it'd be the same thing like when you see a picture of you, 20 years ago or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, who's that? Who's that dapper Dan? Who's that handsome fellow there? Oh, that was me. So who's this old guy I stare at in the mirror every single morning? I feel that quite often. But that being said, when I saw it, I was like, oh man, if I can do that to Sparrow again, she's just going to look amazing, especially with the brand new yellow decks and the popping colors and stuff, because she's going to be a bit of a show pony coming up here. We're hoping to be able to take Sparrow to the yacht clubs to then present her to the world. So you can get a tour of the boat and then also hear one of the illustrious tales of woe, triumph, failure, fatigue, boredom, enlightenment, adventure, all that sort of stuff wrapped up in a 50 to 60 minute presentation, followed by Q&A, of course. And then a book signing. How's that for a promo? Oh, geez. But yeah, so I got to kind of wrap this thing up. I know it's a bit of a short one for one that, it's taken so long to go. But I sat down and did another show, and I am going to email them. They were supposed to send me the entire audio file for that, but I have not seen any of that yet, which obviously I'll want to repost. We had a really interesting conversation with some fellow kind of adventurous people, but people that also help others get out there and find all sorts of different adventure in life, from surfing to hiking to all sorts of stuff. And sailing was something they were always interested in. And I think that's kind of how we all got linked up together. But more on that once it actually comes out. So we'll get back on the train. We're back in Jeromestown tonight. Got some work to do today. And hopefully a nice little bonfire. We might even have a fireside chat tonight. Because like I said, I'm kind of feeling nostalgic these days. I have all my logbooks and charts. I have my logbooks and my journals to help me with the writing process and such. But it always brings up these old little tales, and I think it might be worth delving back into story time here at the Sailing into Oblivion podcast. Those are always pretty fun. Plus, we do have to do a wrap-up, although I don't think I have the journals that go back as far as the AT. So that one still might have to wait. I still got to do the main section on that and maybe the full wrap up, but we'll get there slowly but surely. All right, I'm powered up. I got my caffeine. I've got my parts for the boat. The weather is nice. Oh, is this leaking? What is going on here? I think it is. Oh, jeez. The cup is leaking, folks. Everybody stand back. Yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody. I know it's a short one, but I've still just got to get it out there. I want to just make sure everybody knows I am still alive, so no big deal. You have not lost your old pal, your old skip, Jay Rome. He is still here, and we got a whole lot of good stuff coming down the pipeline. So with that, hopefully everybody got to work, got their boats going, put in the extra effort, the extra time to make the old vessel look a little bit snazzier than usual, because you know you're going to be sitting on that boat and enjoying a beautiful day in the near future, if not already, depending on where you live and where you are. But we're right at the cusp of the good times, letting the good times roll. We're already having them in the pre-good times because we got that feeling we know the whole summer is right at our doorstep. So we're going to take advantage of it. We're going to use and abuse every moment. We'll sleep in September, and let's all have a good, safe, fun, very nautical, very windy, very boaty sort of summer. All right? Thanks for listening, and until next time.